What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Bleav in Chargers. It's a good time to be alive. Listen, a few weeks ago, the Chargers had a 30% chance of being in the postseason. 3 weeks later, they've punched their ticket to the dance, Lorenzo Neal, after a big win in Indianapolis. How does it feel to clinch with still a few weeks left to go in the season?
Oh, my God. I love the feeling, man. I tell you right now, I remember being in San Diego at the time down the LA Chargers, and we clinched like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. And I'm telling you, you feel so much more relieved because now you can see this team. I guarantee you, too. And here's the thing, Borna, they're not going to go out here and play crazy. You're going to say, oh, now the team's going to lose because they already in. No, you'll still see the starters playing. But now young players get more burned, but you just want guys to get ready for the playoffs. But this is a great time because now the pressure's off. You can say, okay, look, we're playing, we're in the dance. Let's go work on different plays. You make your offense, defense even look more exotic now. Now you throw everything, give the playoff team so many more things to think about. It's just been great, man, how this team they ascended and the rest of the base AFC descended. The Titans, Jets, you watch all these teams, the Raiders, all of them were descending as the Chargers start to ascend.
And Lorenzo Neal, you may ask, how does a team who had a 30% chance of clinching a postseason spot now clinch 3 weeks after that? Well, here's the deal, Chargers fans. The Chargers in that span from weeks 14 to week 17, I Bleav, went 3-0. All the teams under them went 1-15. That's a recipe for success, and that's a recipe to get in big time. So Chargers fans, what a time to be alive. There are lots of goods. You want to hear a great news that Lorenzo and I never thought we'd be talking about? This Chargers defense. They've been ranked number 1 in all statistics in the National Football League over the last month. Lorenzo Neal, would you have ever thought I would be telling you this in late December? My goodness, Lo.
Hey, Borna. I mean, it was 5-6 weeks ago. You and I were talking about this defense was a sin. We said, oh my God, man up. They were giving up more rushing yards than they were giving up more tail than they were giving us more tail than a whale. They were just giving it up every time you looked around. This team could not stop the run. And all of a sudden, don't look now, but this Charger team, the defense is all over the field. They're hitting guys. Derwin James, oh my goodness. I tell you what, Borna, when you saw him crack the receiver, were you like, I was like, oh boy. I'm telling you, I know those hits, they can't allow them in, but that's football, man. That's football at its best. I was sitting in my seat. I jumped up, and man, I went in my sports room and put my helmet on and put my mouthpiece in because I felt that one.
You're crazy, Lo. Hey, I'm telling you, he doesn't get tossed if he's playing in Lorenzo Neal's time from that hit, right? Because I listen, he led with the crown of his helmet, which I know is not allowed, but he did hit the defender the receiver in the shoulder pad. And I think Derwin got the worst of that hit. I mean, he seemed like he was a little bit woozy coming up from that. He's obviously on concussion protocol. Hopefully Derwin will be back. But Lo, you think it was a dirty play? I mean, I don't think it was. I mean, and I think we can have a whole other podcast episode about the way this game is going. And I understand that we need to protect people, right? I totally understand. But there's also, we have to make sure we're not stopping the development of how to teach this game of football and the physicality of this game. So what were your thoughts on that hit and the league's response of ejecting Derwin James?
Yeah, I don't think he should have been rejected. Of course, a fine and a penalty, I totally understand because the rules have changed. But no, that wasn't a dirty play. That's a football play. That's, you know what, when you're playing football, that's why it's football. It's called a contact sport. That's why you have helmets and shoulder pads, because you're going to get hit. And no one said this was easy. So, yeah, it was a big-time hit and a big-time situation. The Chargers are fighting for the playoff hopes, trying to keep them alive. He's trying to set the tone. Defensive captain, the defensive guy that's coming. So, no, wasn't dirty. I do understand the penalty. I don't know about ejection. I think that maybe a penalty, you should have penalty and then 15 yards and move on. But man, that's football at its finest. No, he's gonna get the fine. He's gonna get that FedEx mail. That FedEx mail probably beat him to the facility before he even got there.
Chargers fans, as we gear up for this postseason run, thank you guys so much for all the support of Bleav in Chargers here. Make sure you continue to go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and download this episode. Go check us out on YouTube on the Hogwatch Football channel as well. And we also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, betonline.ag, your number one source for all betting needs. Use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for $50 off your welcome bonus. Go lock in some Chargers future bets right now if you want to sprinkle in some pretty juicy value. Lo, you talked about getting a little FedEx paper. I got to ask you this. I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you ever been fined in your playing career? And if so, why? I want to hear it, and the people want to hear it.
Yeah, you know what? I got that piece of mail came to my lug. That mail, that fine came through before, I don't know what for, but yeah. Actually,
Hey, cryptic Lorenzo Neal, not. Hey, he's usually a big talker. He's a little bit more silent this time around, huh?
you called me out, man. You called me out. Yeah, so
good.
It happens to guys. Maybe a temper might have flown here or there. Maybe pushed a guy. I don't know what happened, Borna, but yeah, I got that FedEx. It comes in your mail, and you're like, oh, here it comes. And then a guy named Teddy. He was the defensive coordinator for us for the Chargers. Also, he was a DC when I was with the Tennessee Titans when we beat the Buffalo Bills. Teddy, what's his name? I got forget the defensive and then he came to Chargers, of course, and being coach. He actually works there in DC. He's the guy that you get to get on the phone with, and you get to argue your case and tell him what happened and why you shouldn't be fined. And it usually doesn't go over well.
Absolutely. Chargers fans, listen, it's a little bit tough to assess this Colts game because let's be real right now. This Colts team is they are a dumpster fire right now. And you know when it's bad when your owner is making all the decisions, even from a football perspective. That's not how it should be. And Jim Irsay obviously bringing Jeff Saturday and company. Nick Foles started over Matt Ryan. So here's the good about the Chargers. Number one is this defense, right? This defense is playoff-bound elite defense. We still don't know what Joey Bosa's status is. Brandon Staley said today, Lorenzo, no update on Bosa, which is a little bit of a concern. But listen, they've been doing it without Derwin James. They've been doing it without Joey Bosa. They've been doing it without J.C. Jackson. This unit is just playing so freaking good right now. And listen to this. In the last 3 weeks, I believe, Staley's unit has allowed only 34 points low. Talk to me about this defense and how much hope it has given this team.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everyone talks about the Niners defense. Hold the press. Wait a minute. The Chargers defense now start. Do we dare say that it's comparable to the Chargers defense? I'm not going to go that far, but hey, I'm going to tell you the last couple of weeks, this defense has played really, really well. And especially when you look at an offense that's starting to find its stride. You look at Keenan Allen, the things that he's been able to do, and you look at the offense. The offense, believe it or not, you thought the offense was going to be able to score like we talked about Borna early this season. You thought this team was going to average at least 30. We thought it was going to average at least 28 to 30 points a game. And that far, it's been lackluster. And the defense, we're saying that. Do we dare say the defense has been the strong point of this team? So it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a little frustrating as well because you know this Charger team is a little bit. It's very tough to analyze because you see this defense, you're like, oh my goodness, if this defense is playing this well, now it's just like, okay, offense, like, is this going to be the week you explode? Is this going to be the week you put up a 40 burger? Like, we're still waiting for that to happen. And that's kind of, listen, this team is in now. They have 2 weeks to really figure it out on the offensive side of the ball. And if I'm Brandon Staley, I'm going to Joe Lombardi, and I'm saying, Joe, listen, I know you love your stick routes. I know you love everything above the sticks. I know you're Mr. Conservative, but let's try some new things this week. We got 2 weeks. We're in the dance. Let's try some things this week because we know if we got to go to Orchard Park or if we got to go to Arrowhead, they're going to put up 40. All right. Even with how good our defense is. We need to expand the field. We need to try some things. So, Lo, I'm still a little bit concerned. Justin Herbert hasn't thrown, I don't think, for a touchdown in the last 3 weeks. It's been all on the ground game with Eckler or things like that. So, what do you think it is offensively? Why does this team continue to just it's a little bit cringeworthy? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think you just see the inconsistency on offense. Yeah. You watch the offense have a big play and then they call it back. And you're like, oh my God. Then you'll watch the offense kind of spuggle around. They have a run. And you're like, oh my God, holding. Then you'll watch them look like they're holding up. And all of a sudden you get a sack, back-to-back sacks. Quarterback, and then at times, quarterback will throw a timely interception. They're in scoring zone, going down to score and, a turnover. So it's been really, really just the inconsistency of the offense and shooting themselves in the foot. They got to iron these things out. And you just watch it. It's like this team run it, pass. Okay, we'll run. Pass. Okay. It uses it's not a complementary offense at all. And that's the thing but you grow to say, understand, hey, we got to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. But it goes to show you, is that consistent enough? Can you do that and win consistency? And I don't think so. You see Kansas City, Mahomes, yes, he's throwing the ball already for 4,000, almost 5,000 yards. But like you alluded to, he still has a running game. They're still running the ball. And that's what makes them even that much dangerous. So that's the thing that this Charger team has to do. They got to get effective running the ball, especially in the playoffs. You got to show that you can, because when you throw the ball, if it's incomplete, the clock stop, all the different things that happen that don't work on your side when you're running. And you see a lot more holding also with these passes because the offensive line, hopefully there's help on the way, but just been inconsistently. Guys are taking turns breaking down offensively, Borna.
You know what, Lorenzo, it's a good point. I think it's not one specific person. I just think it's a lot of different scenarios. Here's what I think, and I think we're going to talk about Keenan Allen. He was fantastic, right? 11 catches, 104 yards. But here's the one thing about Keenan Allen. This is not a knock on him. This is just who he's been as a player. Keenan Allen's not a yak guy. He's not a guy who's going to get yards after catch. He's a guy who's going to give you big-time conversions on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. He's going to go down. The Chargers need to get Mike Williams involved more. They need to get him involved more. He's the guy who opens up the field. He's the guy who gets everything going. Mike Williams, you look at the stat line, four receptions for 76 yards. Sure, whatever. But he was only targeted 4 times. All 4 of his targets were catches. Versus Keenan Allen was targeted 14 times, and he caught it 11 times. They need to get Mike Williams involved more to open up the field, get things going from north and south, east to west, versus just Keenan Allen stick routes, concepts, getting you first downs. I think if Mike Williams opens up the field, that allows defenders having to drop back. It opens up your run game. It makes it even easier for tight ends to get involved. Gerald Everett had no catches. So I think, listen, it's great that Keenan Allen is a zone killer. It's great that Keenan Allen is that slayer. But at the end of the day, you're not going to have one guy beat good secondaries in the playoff. It's not going to beat Lou Anarumo's defense in Cincinnati. It's not going to beat Spagnuolo's defense in Kansas City. So I think the Chargers, what they need to do is they need to kind of get diverse here. They need to start trying a lot of different things. And listen, they got 2 good guinea pigs to experiment on in these next final few weeks with the LA Rams and the Denver Broncos, because it doesn't get much more dumpster fire than that. I will credit those Rams, though, low. They just put up 51 on the Denver Broncos. Are the Denver Broncos the biggest failed experiment in the history that we've seen in this league, low? This is insane.
It's not. I mean, honestly, people lost millions on this team, especially when you had a future, possibly everyone thought about a Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson, and you can't even come in and make this team somewhat able to compete, especially your defense played well enough this year, except the last game where you gave up 51. But this was just ferocious.
Do you believe in Russ? You think he can turn it around? You think it was more of the coach?
Let Russ cook. Well, I'll tell you right now, let's ride, as Russell would say. Russell Wilson, I tell you right now, he's got to win back over that fan base. He's going to have to win over not just the fan base. He's going to have to win over that locker room. He's going to have to win back over his teammates. This guy's got a lot that he has to prove. So I tell you, this offseason, Russell Wilson shouldn't be jet setting him and his gorgeous wife. And he should be like, I got to focus on football, and I got to focus on trying to win these guys back and be on the same page with these receivers, because I'm telling you, Russell Wilson this year, I'm telling you, this hurt his career, and I don't know if he's going to be able to recover from it.
And listen, Russell Wilson, again, his goal in his life is not to be rich. He's achieved that, right? His goal is to leave a legacy. And that's kind of that next stage. It's tarnished right now in Denver. You know, I think we heard about his, I don't want to talk too much about Denver, but he had a birthday party, and I think only half of the team showed up. Right. I mean, that goes to show you, that ain't good. That's your franchise quarterback you gave $250 million to. And if they were to cut him, they still have $106 million of dead money tied up to Russell Wilson. I've heard a lot of people talking about Sean Payton. Should he go to the Denver Broncos? Chargers fans, when you're assessing a coach, there's a few things they assess. Number one is ownership. All right. There's ownership turmoil right there in Denver. Next is draft capital. All right. They don't have any draft capital. Next is your quarterback. There's a lot of question marks around that quarterback. You take a look at those 3 things, so many question marks. He ain't going to Denver. Okay, we can talk about things like that, but he ain't going to Denver. So, number one. Now, going back to the Chargers, we talk about this offense. Lots of things to do, as Lorenzo says. They can't run the football, and they ran the ball 32 times for 101 yards. That's barely 3 yards per carry. Is it something at this point, Lorenzo, where they just have to continue to just kind of try it and continue to just try and force that hand? Or is it just something where they're going to have to just adapt and say, screw this, it ain't going to work, we're going to have to figure it out another way?
Well, I think you got to look at I think that these next 2 weeks, as a coaching staff and as offensive supposed to that side of the ball, you got to get in the lab. And what I mean by that, you got to go and look at each play that you run and say, okay, what do we do best? When they run an over and under and over defense, when the guard's covered, when the center's covered and the tackle, that's an under, because you got 3 to the weak side. An over when you got 3 to the strong side, where the tight end's at, you got a guy with the center, you got a guy with the nose, guard and tackled. That's an over. And the backside is a bubble, so the guard's uncovered. So the nose, so you got to say, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to double team? Anytime we have a bubble, let's try to run to the bubble, but let's create a double team on the nose, and the guard are going to block down on the nose guard. Boom. Block down on the nose guard. And are they going to ace up to the Mike linebacker and say, this is what we got to do? We got to make sure that we have a great double team. I want you guys cheek to cheek, butt to butt, scooping this guy up and leading up to the Mike linebacker and create some opportunities for these running lanes. Run to this bubble. And then now once we start doing that, now teams are going to say, okay, they're running to the bubble side. Now you act like you're blocking down. Now you pull the guard and you run power. If you can get power and run to the strong side, you got to start saying, okay, we got to exploit where the defense aren't strong at. And we got to do a better job of creating more double teams and creating a new line of scrimmage. Yes, like you said, they do have to continue to run, but you can't just run the ball to say that we're running the ball. You got to start running the ball with some more efficiency.
That's interesting. I think that's a good point. That's the old fullback in you talk, and I think maybe you got to change it up. More toss plays. Just switch even some reverses. Getting some things. Just trying to switch it up. I know Shanahan. I know and San Francisco, they love the toss. They love that quick toss. And again, have a pulling guard and get those running backs to run downhill. That's worked so effectively in San Francisco. I mean, I tell Lorenzo this offline, everybody, all the time. It's like, I always thought running the football was boring. I watch the Niners and I can watch them run the football all day long. They just slowly bleed you to death. That's how they play football. They just they dominate the time of possession and they just slowly get 6-7 yards, slowly bleed you to death. And that's why, I'm not knocking Brock Purdy, but that's why it's probably the best quarterback situation in football. Because the defense has to sell out completely on the run. The quarterback just needs to make a few reads and find one of the best tight ends in the National Football League dancing and prancing in the middle of the open field. So long story there, short about the Niners. But
but no, exactly what you're saying. And that's what the Niners got to look at and say, okay, you got Eckler who can cut back. He's a cutback runner too. He can find holes. And if you look at it, he'll fit the Niners scheme because he runs that type of gun. He's a zone type of guy. I want to read it. So if you do the toss, but now the backside, if you watch the Niners, when they toss the ball away from Trent, the big tackle on the left side, when they toss it away from him, he takes his guy and he blocks him down. So you got to create a new line of scrimmage. So if you're pitching to the left, if you're going to pitch the ball to the right, it's that quick toss. Pitch it to the right. But the running back's got to pick his way to understanding that backside, that tackle's got to drive that guy down. And now if you can make it back, but you can't let him penetrate on the backside, he can't come up the field. You got to keep him going down the line of scrimmage and keep him lateral and keep his outside shoulder contained with your outside arm. So now he can't come off the block. And now you have that cutback lane. And that's what the Chargers got to do. It's a play that you got to feel, but that backside becomes the front side if you get good down blocks. So the Chargers, these are 2 weeks born. And like you said, you got to work on that. Got to work on the run game without a doubt, because the playoffs, you're going to have to find a way to run the ball, kill clock, do the things you need to do. But yes, and the Chargers, they can intermediate pass the ball, but you can starting to see guys, and you even saw it in Indianapolis. They were playing sticks, dropping 5 and 6 guys, and they were playing the sticks, and they were knocking down passes because it was so short of a pass. So you got to they got to fake those slants, and they got to double move guys and go deep and start throwing the ball down the field. You can't just sit there and say, okay, I'm going to dink and dunk, because now you got 8 guys and 9 guys in the box. That takes away your run game, running lanes, and it also takes away your passing game. The line's got to hold up in the passing game for you can take some vertical shots down the field. So it's about the consistency all the way around for this Chargers team if they want to make a serious run in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And you bring up great points, because listen, Lo, the Chargers are on a 3-game win streak, and they very well could end the season on a 5-game win streak, right? They could be 11-6, but a lot of these wins aren't convincing. Like this Indianapolis team is, I don't want to knock from the Chargers, but there's still a lot of question marks, right? And I want to talk about this defense that had 7 sacks. I want to talk about one more thing about Justin Herbert, though. I've been seeing a lot of things in the media about this guy. I don't even know why we were comparing him to Tua. By the way, prayers up to Tua. I really hope they sit him for the rest of the year with the concussions. It's very dangerous. He's had a lot. So prayers up to Tua. He's going to be a great quarterback. But, I still think it's crazy that Herbert was compared to someone like him, and there was a lot of media flack on Justin Herbert. I want to tell you guys this statistic, Chargers fans, that may wow you. Justin Herbert is 18-4 in his career when his defense allows 27 points or less. Isn't that crazy? Right? Wow. Like if Justin Herbert, if his defense holds opponents to under 27 points, Justin Herbert is 18-4.
A lot of quarterbacks can't say that. Wow.
All he needs to do, hey, defense, allow 27 points or less, and we have an 85 to 90% chance of winning football games. So a lot of times people have been slacking Justin Herbert. How is this young third-year quarterback barely above 500? Because he's had some of the worst defenses next to him in his young NFL career. So now you start to see this defense play well. Oh my goodness, what do you know? He's 3-0 when his defense is playing well. It ain't rocket science, everybody. You take a look at San Francisco. Sure, you credit Shanahan, that offense, but all those years in the Shanahan era, they've been known for their defense, whether it was Robert Saleh, whether it was D'Amico Ryans. That's actually the engine of those teams, right? So it's like, sure, we can credit, Brock Purdy's great record, but it ain't anything without that defense. So I want people to know that when you start scrutinizing Justin Herbert and be like, he doesn't even need a bad defense. Give him a good defense. Give him an average defense. He's going to win a lot of football games. But isn't that a crazy stat, Lorenzo? I saw that today.
That stat is unheard of. If you're talking about 18-4 when his team keeps a team under 27 or less, I'm telling you, Born, there's not. I guarantee you can't say that. Maybe Mahomes, you ain't gonna say that for about any quarterbacks. That's an unbelievable stat for him to be 18-4, 27 or less. That's really unheard of. No, Justin Herbert, we understand. I think the guy's a phenomenal quarterback. I think he has a lot of potential and a lot of upside. It's just, man, if you can keep that guy upright and the offensive line can get better, and they are going to continue to get better, that's what he needs. If he can do that, because a lot of times you see him try to press and do things at times because of the fact he knows you're not going to have a lot of shots. You know that offensive line can't help. And that's the thing we don't understand. And, we look at the offense of the OC, the offensive coordinator, Lombardi, and you say, well, God, why don't you push the ball down the field? Well, he's thinking in his head, 1,001, 1,002, I got to get the ball out of his hand. So maybe the quarterback can't even hold it. But that's why you got to be able to run the ball. Play action, being able to run the ball. Because now when you're able to run the ball, defenses have to stop their feet because they got to think run. When you play action, now they got to think run, hold up. Now they got to say, okay, is he not running? Now they got to continue, stop, and go to get to the quarterback. But if you don't have a run threat, and if you can't run the ball with any type of consistency, you hurt your play action. There's another quarterback we know who's the greatest of all time, the GOAT, none other than Tom Brady. Look at the time Tom Brady has now to throw the ball. Tom Brady's throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game, and he had barely been able to win. Look at where they're at because he is not protected. And you know that, and I know it. I don't care what type of quarterback you are, if you don't have protection in the National Football League, it's going to be tough.
Bingo. And it's going to be very tough. And hopefully Rashawn Slater can come back. We still don't know what's going to be the situation there, but we should find out very shortly. I want to talk about a few things before we wrap it up on today's episode. I want to get Lorenzo's AFC picks and some playoff discussion as well. But again, I want to recap again with this Chargers defense. Lorenzo Neal, 7 sacks. Okay, 7 sacks yesterday for this Chargers defense. Drew Tranquill, in my opinion, one of the biggest Pro Bowl snubs. This is a guy, Drew Tranquill, who's been lights out. Mike linebacker for the Chargers here, flying everywhere. Another 11 tackle night, leading this defense in tackles. This guy's flying. He's physical. He's a leader. He's vocal. That is what you look for in a guy. And this guy who come from Notre Dame wasn't the biggest prospect ever. Now he's leading this Staley-led defense. You take a look at Michael Davis. Ever since that Miami game when he shut down Tyreek Hill, Michael Davis has turned his season around. This is a guy the Chargers gave a 3-year, $20 million contract to in 2020. Undrafted guy, was a track star. Struggled this year. Some switch flipped for Michael Davis. And do you know what the switch is? It's called your mentality, because we've seen it. We've seen him produce, but sometimes you get in, you're stuck in your own head. I get stuck in my head all the time in my life. I'm sure we all do. But some switch flip, he's like, oh my goodness, I am that bad man. And you started to see him shut down people. Asante Samuel Jr., another interception. This guy's on his way to being a Pro Bowler next year. This defense is playing everywhere now. Sebastian Joseph Day stopping the run. Derwin James intercepting before he got thrown out in that first quarter. Kyle Van Noy, 3 straight games with a sack. He didn't have a sack in the first 13 weeks. So Lorenzo Neal, what does all that sound like? Sounds like poetry, baby. It's all coming together.
It's coming. Like, I said, there's a show you missed, man. It's before your time. And a guy would say, I love it when a plan comes together. None other than the A-team, baby. Go ask your mom and dad about the A-team, baby. And he would say that, I love it when a plan comes together. And they would usually be losing every battle. You had Mr. T, B.A. Baracus, and Face. And all of a sudden, it was a show that came on every Tuesday night. Is the A-team, and they were fugitives on the law, and all this, they always would be in trouble. And all of a sudden, hey, I like it when a plan comes together, because they would just start to turn the tides. And that's what the Chargers are doing now. You told me what that sounds like. I said, I love it when a plan comes together, because they're turning the tide. You got guys stepping up. 13 weeks without a sack, and now every week getting a sack. You're seeing the way that this defensive front's playing up front against the run, playing a lot more physical. Corners are challenging guys. They're getting interceptions, winning turnover battles. I'm telling you, I like it when a plan comes together too.
I love it, Lo. And Lo, let's give credit to Brandon Staley, right? We got to give him credit because he's got these guys to fight for him now. There's a lot of question marks early on in the season. We're still going to have our question marks. Right? There was times where, I'll even talk about last night. This team went for it where they totally should have kicked. It worked out. But with Brandon Staley, we finally are starting to see some fruit bear from these trees with this defense. And it took, almost damn near 30 games. But it's better late than never is the old adage. And we're really starting to see this defense, come together at the right time. It's such an interesting time, right? As Charger fans, there's some big head coaches, candidates who are very interested in coming to coach for the Chargers, Sean Payton. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, right? That's a discussion we can have for hours in the offseason.
Yeah. I'm with you, though, because that's what, early in the season, people talking about Sean Payton because he understood what he had. Sean Payton's not going anywhere without a quarterback. Sean Payton knew Drew Brees was going to step out in the game. So he said, you know what? If Drew's going to go out, let me step out too. Let me see what these guys can do. And now I can come back in. Let me see what's going to happen. And you think about it, you look at the Chargers, they're set. They have a quarterback. So, yeah, there's a lot of coaches around the league that would say, man, if Staley would lose his job, there will be a line of coaches for this job because you got a guy in Justin Herbert that can win. You got a guy that's a thermostat, not a thermometer. Always talking about those thermometer quarterbacks and thermostat quarterbacks. You look at Jimmy G, he's a thermometer. You look at Trey Lance right now, he's a thermometer.
What's the difference?
It's very simple. You get a thermometer, it tell you what it does. It measures temperature. You got a cold, I put the thermometer on you, it's going to tell you what the temperature is. But a thermostat, when you get in the air house and it's cold, guess what? You turn that thermostat up and you can turn it up. When it's hot outside, you can turn it down if you want to cool off. That's what you want. You want a quarterback that is a thermostat. You want a thermostat that can regulate temperature. Now holler if you hear me, because I want a thermostat, not a thermometer quarterback.
I love it. I haven't heard that one before, Lo. You bring out new things every day. I love that one, baby.
Playoffs on around the corner.
Playoffs. Talking about playoffs. No, honestly, let's talk about the playoffs, right? Before we wrap it up, I think there's still a lot of parity in the AFC because, Lo, we look at the Buffalo Bills. Sure, they're 12-3. Sure, they're going to be the number one overall seed in the AFC. Likely, Josh Allen actually hasn't been that good over the last 10 weeks. He's had the worst completion percentage in football. He's 26th in turnovers. The Bills are just kind of finding ways, right? They're finding ways. But you're watching the Bills and you're not looking at them and you're like, they're insane. I mean, they lost Von Miller for the year. I think that defense has been more suspect than I thought. I think Josh Allen's been a little bit lackadaisical with the football a little bit.
Agreed.
Because he's so great. And that's not, they're a great team. Kansas City, their pass defense has been very suspect. They've had the worst pass defense in the National Football League. What you're going to do, Kelsey is going to probably get limited, probably going to get double, tripled in the playoffs. You're going to have to get other guys to beat you. They do run the football well. Cincinnati is a very good team, of course, but I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts about the AFC as a whole?
I think the AFC as a whole is very, very shaky. It's not dominant. It's quarterback driven.
You agree with me on Buffalo? You agree with me on Buffalo?
Buffalo has been very inconsistent. Josh Allen has not been the guy that everyone thought he was going to be. They've been winning in spite of his inconsistency and also the mistakes that he's made, and they've overcome because it is a good team, like you alluded to. You look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati still can't protect the quarterback. They can play pretty good defense. They can get after you. But if you
just lost Lyle Collins too for the year, they're starting left tackle.
Yeah, and that offense was already struggling to try to protect. You saw them 2 weeks ago. Brady them spotted the Tampa Bay, had a 14 double-digit lead, and just then turnovers killed them, and that's why they end up coming back. They were sacking quarterback left and right. I'm going to tell you right now, Kansas City still seems to be right now just a cut above.
Agreed.
Just because Mahomes' factor, because what he can do with his legs and the way he does it. But I'm going to tell you right now, the teams that's starting to scare me, that I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to bet on them. I'm going to bet online, and I'm going to bet for the rest of the remaining of the weeks is a simple team, and I don't think they're going to lose a game the rest of the regular season. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. Jacksonville Jaguars, they're playing good defense. They will hit you. They'll run the ball. Trevor Lawrence is throwing the ball. Trevor Lawrence has got good feet. He can get out of harm's way. The guy can scramble. Right now, I look at them as I know the Chargers are a team that, they're starting to get some momentum and starting to play pretty good. But believe it or not, Jacksonville seems to be more consistent if you're just asking me.
And the thing with Jacksonville is they've been beating good teams. So that's the one knock on the Chargers, right? They're 9-6, but they're 1-4 against playoff teams. They're 0-3 against the Chiefs and the Niners, right? So, but you look at the Jaguars, they just beat the Cowboys, who are a big contender in the NFC at home. They're playing good defense. But let's be real, they beat the Jets. But with Trevor Lawrence, it's really about him. I mean, his aha moment kind of turned on about a month ago. And everyone was looking like, this guy's the next Luck, the next Elway. You started to see it all happen over the last month or so. And that's why Jacksonville, they're getting a little cocky, though. They're already posting playoff tickets on Twitter. They haven't clinched yet. They still got to go to Houston this week, and then they got to beat the Colts. So Jaguars fans, I don't know if they went full jinx mode on y'all, but I agree. And I think if the Chargers went out and the Bengals beat the Ravens, the Chargers are going to be going to Jacksonville in the wild card round, which could be a very interesting playoff matchup.
So if the Chargers went out and Jacksonville wins out, that's the first game.
No. If the Chargers went out and the Jags went out, the Chargers will go to Jacksonville if the Bengals beat the Ravens. Okay. That's so basically the Chargers right now, if the season ended today, the Chargers are going to Cincinnati in the wild card round. Okay.
Who do you want to see? Would you rather see Jacksonville or Cincinnati?
Jackson, come on. Of course, I'd rather see Jacksonville just because it's a rookie second-year quarterback. Why you're gonna say Cincinnati, huh?
Yeah, here's why. Because I really believe that if you got the Mac attack and you got Bosa back, I think they can have a field day in Cincinnati as far as getting after the quarterback. I don't love Cincinnati's defense. I think Jacksonville's defense is better. I think Jacksonville's offense is now Cincinnati's got big play offense ability. I get that. But if you look at Jacksonville talking about just consistently beat you up, I just think Cincinnati is just like their quarterback has to do too much. He's got to carry their team. I don't know. I don't know. I think either one of those games is winnable for the Chargers.
It's tough. I think what the Chargers do need, though, is being that the reason I like the 5 seed, Lorenzo, is because if you're the 5 seed, it causes the 2 and the 3 seed to have to play each other. So it causes Kansas City and Buffalo to have to knock one of the other 2 out before the Chargers would face them. So the Chargers would have to go beat Buffalo. But what it does do, instead of having to play Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo to get to Super Bowl, they only got to play 2 out of those 3 if they're the 5 seed. So that's kind of where my mindset's coming at. But listen, at the end of the day, if they're going to make a Super Bowl, they're going to have to beat good teams.
They're going to be good teams. Yeah,
you got to beat good teams. So, you can't really strategize. I think Chargers fans will leave you on this note. These next 2 weeks are important, not from a win-loss perspective, but is this offense starting to open it up? If you see that this offense starts to open up, if this offense reverts to what they were last year, this team can win a Super Bowl, man. And it's going to be a very fun postseason run, especially with reinforcements coming back. So, Lo, always a good time with you, man. You feeling good for this postseason run, my man?
Hey, feeling great, man. I think, man, people got to tune in. This is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And a little bit of redemption with Jacksonville. Jacksonville came into L.A. and just spanked them. You remember that game? It was it really played bad. So I think that can be some poetic justice to go to Jacksonville and get revenge, get a little bit of revenge. So that's kind of my angle there for the Chargers. But, man, I'm just excited about this ride. Glad the Chargers made it in. They gated through the storm, and now we know that, hey, look, the sun's out right now. So now let's just see if they can cook.
Absolutely. Chargers fans, that's Lorenzo Neal. I'm Born in Azari. Thank you so much for all the support. See you later, everybody. Happy early New Year's.